Hi, folks out there in Channel 9 land. It's Talkin' Baseball back again with Season 5. This is Episode 2. You may notice we're filming from a different location today. We're actually in the studio because we're hoping to reach syndication soon. Yeah, and we need a more professional experience to pass this on. Hope we get to at least New England syndication, but possibly even national.
Well, yes, with all the talk of contract extensions happening right now, we don't want to hold out for free agency. We don't want to get into a bidding war. Channel 9 is our root channel, so we want to give them the option of extending us first. So, hence we took it right in the professional studio, which is really weird because I went to 4th grade in this classroom where that is now a studio. So, it looks bigger, but I was just smaller then. But.
And first off, we have to show you that we have received our bling from the 2018 championship season. They made sure that this channel and this broadcast especially was rewarded with their partial contributions to last year's
with our undying fandom and constructive criticism, we were rewarded with ring bling right here. These are going to go in the safe as soon as the show is done. So you can pass these on to your friends. There are rings in Lunenburg right now.
But before we start the show proper, because today we're going to be talking about shortstops, we have to give great kudos to the supporters of the Eagle House for a program that was held last Sunday. The Red Sox 2018 championship trophy came to Lunenburg.
Another part of our contract negotiation was that they brought it here for us.
And what happened was, for $5, you could bring a family and have your picture taken with that trophy. So we thought we'd run down it, what the procedure was that day, with a few photographs of some of the lucky folk that got a chance to share in that championship glory for a while. Yeah.
And it was quite popular. People were lining up an hour and a half ahead of time to be taken with the trophy. So it was very popular.
Deb and I got a call about 1 o'clock saying, there's people already lined up out here because it wasn't supposed to start till 2:30. And of course the trophy wasn't there yet.
Which was a big to-do actually when the trophy did show up. It was quite the fanfare that this trophy arrived with.
But about 1:45, a little car pulled up. We were sort of expecting a big Red Sox band. A little car pulled up, and these two people got out. And one guy carried the trophy in what looked like a bird cage. He had a little cloth over the top of it and set it down. And so we were able to let people in early, which was great. About 165 families came through.
Which is very awesome. Thank you, everyone who came and showed up and helped to contribute and made it a great day.
And we were also able to have some door prizes just given out to 24 lucky fans. Thanks to Gordon Eads. Gordon Eads raided the Red Sox, I guess we'd say the
history vault.
The swag room.
Yeah, the swag room.
And so he was able to give trophies out as well. This first photo, for instance, you'll see.
Yeah, we figured we'd share some photos of the day, just of various people who came in and got to enjoy the trophy on their own with the $5 contribution. Thank you so much. And we have a photo coming up here of our illustrious videographer, Debbie Lincoln, right behind the trophy. There we go.
This is the first picture of the trophy.
So we gave her first picture because she's been with us through every show. Our illustrious videographer who puts up with our high contract demands and our high maintenance demands. You know, we have to have certain M&Ms before the show and certain waters, things of that nature. So we gave her the first picture. So the next one is my whole crew that I brought, my family. And as you can go left to right, that's my sister Jamie, lovely wife Gina, that's my son Alexander at the bottom, and me, of course. And
you recognize the shirt?
Yeah, I don't ever change out of this. I wear this all the time. It's actually quite stinky up here. I don't wash it. But that's my family who got to enjoy the trophy, and my son talked about it for days, about 2 days beforehand. Are we going to see the trophy? Are we going to see the trophy? And then he talked about it the entire next day. And it's very cool because these pictures sort of show how baseball goes through the generations. No, you passed it on to me. Right. I'm passing it on to him. When he was still 5 when the World Series happened, and he got to stay up and watch the entire last game of the World Series as a 5-year-old.
Yeah, this is the 5th generation of my family. My grandfather took my father My grandfather went in the 1920s, my father in the 40s and 50s, and on it goes.
And on it goes, and we're warming my son up with Lowell Spinners games right now, and in a couple of years he'll be ready to go to Fenway on his own.
In his lifetime, they've already won 2 trophies. My father's lifetime, they won none.
Right. Right. Yeah, he was, 8 months old when they won the first one, and now he was 5 when they won this one.
But my father was a little older.
Yeah, he was just a little bit, yeah. So this next picture, you might recognize the folks in this one. Again, we never change out of these shirts. He wears this all the time as well. But that's Gordon Eads on the left and Mr. Dave McDonald in the center. And again, posing with the trophy. And Gordon was quite the celebrity there that day. It was sort of like people lining up to see Mick Jagger and Keith Richards in concert. He had the line 6 to 8 people deep the entire day asking him questions, and he was very gracious.
I have to tell the story. Gordon was a student of mine back in 1972, and he used to write up stories of the local football teams for the Fitchburg, actually the Leominster Enterprise before it joined with Fitchburg, and he started out just writing copy for the Fitchburg Sentinel, and now he's received a World Series ring. What a trip. What a job he's done. I traveled from Chicago to Los Angeles to Atlanta to Miami and then back to Boston as a beat sports writer, and now he sits in an office 10 feet away from the park.
A dream job.
And so he's been very gracious to do some help for his hometown, and by contributing to this for the Eagle House supporters, we were able to raise quite a bit of money.
Yeah, and he was a great host, too.
Right.
Talking to everybody, always up for conversation. Just great guy. Thank you, Gordon. Hope you're watching this.
And we also had some town officials show up for this. And this next shot is Tom Alonso and his wife, Christine Foles.
All our VIPs in this section.
And Christine won one of the swags. She won an autographed picture of Big Papi.
And we just saw Tom last night in the participation of Are You Smarter Than a Sixth Grader?
Moderator of the 6th grader, which we proved we weren't.
No, we were not. No, we were not smart. But I think Tom is in the running for replacing Alex Trebek in a couple of years when he retires. So, Tom, good luck on that job.
And then our town moderator was next, Tim Murphy. Actually, Tim showed me a picture on his phone of himself taken with a 2004 trophy. He hadn't changed at all. In this picture, he is holding an autographed Big Papi bat. He's sitting left-handed. I don't know if he is left-handed, but at least to make it authentic, he's holding that bat. And was pretty excited about the fact that he, on his phone, could have 2 trophies taken 15 years apart, and he looked as good then as he does now.
Well, we should all be so lucky.
And, the moderator should take all things in moderation.
Yes, yeah, right.
Okay, and then this last photo we have, this is the Herrick family. Town clerk Kathy Herrick is second from the right. And this family twice went out to compete in a hardball tournament in Las Vegas when they were, I want to say in their 50s maybe. That's Brian and Dinty. And the center first holding the glove is Jim Herrick, usually known as the Fox in his day. And he was one of the first, maybe even the first Lunenburger to sign professional baseball contract. He played for a while in the minor leagues.
Yeah.
And that's Mickey Herrick over on the right, who is a longtime, terrific athlete himself, as I remember. One game I remember, a football game against Clinton, it was a punt, and he raised his hand as though it was going to be a fair catch, but you have to raise both hands for a fair catch. He raised one, and people stopped, and he ran by him for a touchdown. Classic moment.
Thinking on the spot.
That's great. So in any case, we'd certainly like to thank Sue Doherty for the Eagle House director, all the supporters that worked to make this thing successful, the Red Sox for letting us have the trophy on a perfect time because it was 2 days before the opening day of the season at home.
Perfect timing.
And of course, Gordon is forever grateful to him for all the help he gives. And actually, before we get into our main topic today,
one more thing.
Gordon offered to have a raffle set up for 4 tickets for a home game behind home plate, and in addition, a personal guided tour of the park.
Which if you watched Talkin Baseball in the past, he was lucky, he was gracious enough to take us on one of these tours. And it's really something to see the history of the park For over 100 years now, it's been there.
And general admission people don't get to go in all the places that he can take you.
Oh, no.
Where the Silver Sluggers are and the Gold Gloves that we saw in an earlier episode. So it's going to be a drawing on June 12th at 7:30 at the end of the car show that they have that day. And so you can buy tickets up to that time. They'll be on sale always at the Eagle House. 1 for $5 or 3 for $10.
It's worth it. Think about how much money it costs to go sit behind home plate right now at Fenway Park. So why not?
And the game will be determined. Once the winner is picked, he'll get in touch with the person who won, and you can determine what game you'd like to go.
Pick a date that works for you.
Pick a date that works mutually, the game.
Yeah.
So any home game between June 12th and the end of the season. It won't be good for the playoff games, but...
no. You might be able to sneak a Yankees game in there. Who knows? We'll see what's available. But please take your chance. It's well worth it. And again, thanks to Gordon for being so gracious back to his hometown. He never forgot his roots. He's just a wonderful guy when you get to hang out with him, too.
It was a terrific event. It was covered by PAX, so you can see the whole event. And also it's covered in the Ledger, I believe, today.
It was, yes.
So that was that. That was a very nice event to have in town. Now, because the season has just gotten underway and the season so far has not been that auspicious, we decided that what we'd like to talk about is an extraordinary thing that's happened to our, I won't say beloved Yankees, but our rival Yankees.
So if you've watched shows in the past, what is the number one thing that we always talk about for a team to be successful? Being healthy. Keeping players off the disabled list, which the Red Sox were remarkable at last year. Sale was the only major player who was on the DL for an extended period of time, and I think that was more precaution than anything rather than an outright injury. Pedroia missed almost the entire year, but they were able to cover for him. Pomeranz was off due to injury, but they didn't have any huge monumental pieces of the team that were out for extended periods of time.
And the few injuries were slight.
Yes.
Mookie missed a couple weeks. Jackie missed a couple.
Nunez missed a little bit.
Essentially, the core of the team was intact throughout. And by the playoffs, they all were.
Everybody was back.
But listen to this list so far. Yankees have 12 players on the injured list that were not on the injured list when the season started.
So since spring training, since the spring training, I'll just run through the major ones. Andujar, the third baseman, is out probably through June. Dylan Betances, who's their hulking setup 7th and 8th inning guy, he's out at least another month, if not through Memorial Day. Blast from the past, Jacoby Ellsbury. Who knows? He's still on the team, but he hasn't played for almost 2 years now. He's still on the deal, and they're still paying him.
$17 million.
$17 million
sit on the bench.
To just be hurt forever. Didi Gregorius, the shortstop, is out probably till the middle of the year, which is why they went out and grabbed LeMahieu.
And maybe their MVP last year.
Sure. Oh, yeah. He was the guy I least wanted to see at the plate, actually, most of the season. Aaron Hicks, who they just gave a 7-year extension to, their center fielder, he's out till at least Memorial Day. CC Sabathia, who we talked about before as a potential Hall of Famer, he's out for who knows. There's no real deadline for his return, and he may just retire. This is the last year of his deal.
He's going to retire.
And Luis Severino, who's their ace pitcher, they are lucky if he'll be back by Memorial Day, probably the All-Star break, if they're lucky. So who knows when he's coming back. And Giancarlo Stanton, who is their immense power hitter, he's out at least till April, if not May, later than that. And Troy Tulowitzki, who they just picked up, he's out till about Memorial Day, too.
And as of this last weekend, Sanchez, their catcher, went down. Yeah. 6 of the 9 starting players on this team are currently on the DL, and 2 of their starting pitchers.
And if you ask me, catcher is the hardest position to replace. When you lose your starting catcher, you're in trouble. I mean, the Red Sox are fortunate that they had 3 last year they could go to. Not all teams have that. So as much as these other injuries are devastating, Sanchez, I think, is really the one that's the most killer out of all of those. But It goes to show a lot of it is getting lucky with being healthy.
And this is a long-winded way of leading into our trivia question.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So, of all the players last year, well, we talked about 1978, Jim Rice played in 163 games. He played every game plus the tiebreaker playoff game.
Didn't take one day off all season.
So, and of course, we know there's someone we'll talk about in this show later who had a much longer consecutive game streak. But Cora last year was very adamant about giving his players adequate rest. And he stuck to that the entire year, and there were some grumblings about it in the course of the year, but by the playoffs, no one was complaining because everyone was fresh.
Yeah, there would be a game where Mookie would get 3 for 4 and be benched the next day.
Yes. Yeah.
He's hot.
He's hot. Don't bench him. No. But Cora was adamant of looking long-term. So of all the players on the Red Sox last year, who played in the most games on the 2018 Red Sox? Right. Which player played in the most games out of 162? Can't play more than that. So who is in the most?
Who is the most? That's our trivia for the day.
So ponder that as always while we talk about other subjects.
All right, this gets us to our main topic. For those of you who did not see last month's show, what we decided to do throughout this year is create what we call a Mount Rushmore Hall of Fame. That is, 5 players at each of the 8 positions plus left-handed and right-handed pitchers. 50 players. And that's it for your Hall of Fame. So with some of the parameters of that was going to be, the key thing is the number of games played at the position.
You had to play at your position for the majority of your career for that position.
They all have had to have their careers start after 1950.
Right, because 1950 there were 2 big things. First, the racial barrier was broken. Jackie Robinson had already brought non-white players into the game, and there was an influx of players then, so it leveled the playing field to sort of what it is in modern times.
Yeah.
And the second is MLB expansion. Prior to 1950, there was nothing west of St. Louis.
Right.
After 1950, there's travel to the West Coast. It becomes a more national game. So those 2 factors are huge in getting to what we consider just modern players.
And not to date myself, but I've seen all these players because I started following baseball in 1950.
That's right. So we have a resource.
That was what the cutoff was.
Yeah.
Okay. So last week we picked the top 5 third basemen. So what we're going to do today is take the top 5 shortstops.
Let's move right on around the diamond and pick the shortstops.
And what we decided to use as a cutoff was players that had 2,000 games or more played at shortstop.
Right, so you won't see, among others, you will not see Alex Rodriguez, who split his time between third and short pretty evenly. Robin Yount, who was shortstop and center field pretty much right down the middle. And surprisingly, people don't realize this, Ernie Banks played more games at first base than shortstop.
Right.
He's always thought of as Mr. Cub at shortstop, but he actually was first the entire second half of his career. So you won't see those 3 players because they didn't fit our parameters for shortstop.
So if you look up online for who someone, MLB, say, picks the top shortstops of all time, although also Honus Wagner in there. But since 1950, usually A-Rod, Ernie Banks and Robin Yount are included, but they played far too few games at second base.
And that doesn't mean they're not Hall of Famers.
Right.
They're Hall of Famers. They just didn't fit one position.
Our Hall of Famers fit the position. Right. That's the idea.
Yeah.
Who the most ones.
Right. So should we start with at the top and work our way down?
Yes, let's do that.
Okay.
Actually, I would say that it was not difficult to pick the top 3.
No, the top 3 are unanimous across the board, no question whatsoever.
And then 4, 5, 6, and 7 could be argued in any possible way.
Just like our third baseman last week, last month.
And there are 4 others that we didn't consider that also had credentials. I think none of them are currently in the Hall of Fame, though.
No, and I don't think they will be anytime soon.
Okay.
So we'll start right at the top, I guess. And no surprise, and as much as Red Sox fans hate him, you have to respect him. Our number 1 pick is Derek Jeter. Pretty obvious. He's 8th all-time in hits as a shortstop, which is pretty incredible when you think about it. He won 5 Gold Gloves, and we know towards the end of his career, a couple of those were dubious. Yeah. But at least the first half of his career, he was a top defender. Remember, later on in his career, the joke was, what's the most uttered phrase in the playoffs? Past a diving Jeter, because he had no range the last 4 or 5 years of his career. But at least the first half, he was a very, very good shortstop. And and one of the most intelligent players I've ever seen. What he lacked in range, he made up for in smarts. He was always in the right place at the right time. You remember that famous play in the 2003 playoffs where who threw it in? The left fielder threw the ball in, and Jeter cut the ball off running towards home plate, and in one motion flipped the ball to Posada, and they got the Oakland runner at the plate. It was Jeremy Giambi who was thrown out at the plate. Just the most unbelievable heads-up play you've ever seen.
He was totally out of position.
He was completely out of position.
But he just sensed where it might be and stopped it. That's great.
So Jeter is our number one, and just to run down the credentials, almost 3,500 hits. He had 3,465, a 310 batting average for his career.
That's critical for shortstops.
Sure.
No shortstops at 310.
And this is something we're going to get into. He had 358 career steals. Now, traditionally, shortstop has been a position where you don't get a lot of power, but you get speed. It's good defense and singles hitters who are fast.
Yep.
That's always been the sort of the stereotypical shortstop. So Jeter passes the sniff test in every category we have. And he did have 260 homers in his career, so he did have some pop, especially in the playoffs. He hit a couple really huge back-breaking homers in the playoffs for the other teams. Who can forget Mr. November? That was his name because in 2001, the 9/11 terrorist attack pushed the baseball season back, and he won a playoff game in November with a home run. So in lieu of Reggie Jackson being Mr. October, Jeter became Mr. November. Of course, they lost the series later on, but that, we'll forget about that part.
It's hard to talk highly in New England about a Yankee.
It is.
But I can't remember anybody ever knocking Jeter as a person.
Well, absolutely not. He and Mo Rivera.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I mean, you dislike the team or the laundry, but you can't dislike those two guys.
Absolutely.
He was never involved in any nastiness. His personal life was clean.
Sure. Yep.
In fact, he dated a lot of very pretty ladies.
Yes, he did. Yeah, good for him. I'm not going to knock him on that. But he's our number one, and I don't think there's any really question that he's the best shortstop of the last almost 70 years. I mean, Yankee or not, you have to respect the guy. And in fact, you remember his final season, everybody had the respect, and the 2 was in place of the S on the word respect.
And I remember his last at bat, he knocked in a winning run in a game.
Yes, he did.
A walk-off win.
And you were there for his 3,000th hit,
That's right.
Which was pretty amazing.
I've been to Yankee Stadium once in the last 20 years, and the game we went to was his 3,000th hit, and my wife and I felt kind of bad. We were taking up seats that New Yorkers would have enjoyed being at, but
so what? You were there for history. So what?
I have a photograph of him getting it.
And
actually, he got the hit off David Price.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. He did. It was off Price. So he's our number one, and I don't think there's any really question that he's number one. So, and on to number 2. I don't think there's any question.
Number two is Mr. Shortstop, Cal Ripken Jr. Cal Ripken is famous for having the longest streak of games played, breaking Lou Gehrig's streak by 300-400.
Oh, more than that, yeah. And he did it as a shortstop.
That's right. The hardest position. He also leads all shortstops in home runs. 431 homers and 1,698 RBIs. Mm-hmm. So he's a power hitter. Mm-hmm. He was a big guy.
He was a very big guy.
Most shortstops are either little guys or tall, skinny guys like Mark Belanger.
Yeah, well, especially for that era when he came up, all through the 60s and 70s, shortstops were Mark Belanger types.
That's right.
So, good defense.
Hit 180.
Hit 200 maybe, but you cared about the defense.
Right.
Ripken sort of changed that as a bigger guy who could clean up in your lineup and give you the good defense.
So his trademarks were reliability. That streak, I can remember when he broke the streak, they finally just sat him down for a game. Mm-hmm. He ran around the field like Yastrzemski did.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Beloved player. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting about him is he only had 36 steals and only won 2 Gold Gloves. So that the trademark shortstop, landmarks of shortstops, he didn't match.
Right.
But he was unique.
He was an anomaly.
Both for his never getting hurt. Never getting hurt.
Which is amazing. I mean, think about... You have a regular day job out there, right? Think about how many times you called in sick to your job because you had the flu or just something happened, some family crisis or whatever. He never called in sick for 15 years, it worked out to. It's extraordinary when you think about it. And especially in light of today's athletes with the big contracts, everyone's so cautious about, you have a hangnail, sit down for a day or two so you don't risk more injury. And he just said, nope, I'm just going to go out and play every day. And he played every inning for about 7 or 8 years. He never even sat down an inning for a while of that stretch.
Yeah, if you were a backup shortstop for the Orioles.
Yeah, you were kind of blocked in the system.
You just passed the tobacco around.
Yeah, right. So he's our number 2, and again, I don't think there's much debate about number 2. I mean, you can't have him lower than that. But we're going to move on to our number 3, and we were talking about shortstop stereotypes. This is someone who does fit what you think a shortstop would be. Ozzie Smith. And his defense is absolutely unparalleled. He won 13 Gold Gloves, and he actually was a decent hitter. He wasn't horrible at the plate. He has a 262 lifetime average. He had over 2,400 hits. And he's one of the most iconic players of the era for, he always used to come out to his position and do a backflip as he ran onto the field, even in the All-Star game. And if you look online, there are many pictures of him mid-backflip taking his position on the field. And what people forget is he's most known as a Cardinal. He actually played with the Padres the first 5 years of his career. And we've talked about trades before in the past, how trades don't work sometimes. The Padres traded Ozzie Smith to the Cardinals for Gary Templeton, who had a better first 5 years of his career and was 2 years younger than Ozzie Smith. So you can't fault the Padres for trading him away. It just didn't work out. It's just one of those deals that didn't work out, and the Cardinals got a Hall of Famer. And again, tying into the whole Jeter thing, never any controversy on or off the field. He was always smiling, always a terrific guy. Everyone spoke highly of him. But he was... If you were talking 70s and 80s shortstops, great defense on the stupid turf they used to play on, he was your first thought. He was who you thought of.
I would say he's regarded as the best fielding shortstop.
Absolutely.
13 Gold Gloves.
Which is amazing. With 13.
And there's one play that would show over and over in the highlights. He dove and the ball took a bad top. He grabbed it barehanded and threw the guy out at first base. I've seen that so many times. But this was the definitive shortstop.
I think it was on the This Week in Baseball credits for a while.
We talk a lot about having iconic moments as a ball player.
That was one right there.
It was extraordinary. That and the home run he hit
in the playoffs. And again, Ripken was Mr. Orioles. He was Mr. Cardinal.
Mr. Cardinal.
He was the face of the Cardinals for 15 years when he was with the team. So those are our top 3, and I don't think anyone can really argue those top 3 shortstops. I mean, those are just clear-cut above. Now we get into not really murky waters, but you can sort of debate 4, 5, 6, and 7, depending on what your criteria
The next 4, let's just break them up. We've already made our decisions, but let's break them up. The next 4 we had to decide between were Barry Larkin, Alan Trammell, Louis Aparicio, and Omar Vizquel. Those probably would fall into pretty much... You could make arguments for any one of those.
Sure, absolutely.
The other 4 that played over 2,000 games, Bert Campaneris, who had the most steals. He had 649 steals. Davey Concepcion, Larry Boa, and Edgar Renteria.
Who can forget his 1 year with the Red Sox where he was a total flop. So he played over 2,000 games at shortstop.
Yeah, those are all the 2,000 game players. So those are the ones we took into consideration.
Sure.
But we decided number 4, we had to have at least another shortstop known for his hitting, and that's Barry Larkin, who just very recently has been in the Hall of Fame.
The last 2 years ago, I think he got in, yes.
He had a 2.95 ERA. At the
batting average.
Well, maybe he did that too.
Maybe he pitched too, who knows.
And he had 379 steals, which for a power hitter is great.
Yes.
Everyone we mentioned had at least 250 steals.
Except for Ripken, but the rest all did.
Except for him. He only had 3 Gold Gloves, but I think his production, 198 home runs, would put him 4th.
Sure, 295 career average and over 2,300 hits. And interestingly, like the 3 people ahead of him, he was Mr. Red when he played. With his career, he was the face of the Reds when he played, and now the Reds weren't very good most of the time he was there, which was kind of sad. They had that sort of one outlier year in 1990, but he was, again, like Ripken in the field, he was Mr. Consistency at the plate. Look at his numbers. Every year he would hit 290 to 300 or so. He'd contribute, 15 to 20 homers every single year. Just completely reliable year in, year out. One of those guys who didn't wow you year to year, but you look at the stats total, and he's an absolute Hall of Famer. So moving on to number 5, and This is someone who I hope is a Hall of Famer, and he's on the ballot right now, and I think he's getting a lot of support, year after year, he's getting more and more votes behind him, and that's Omar Vizquel. So Omar Vizquel has the most games at shortstop of anyone. He played over 2,700
games at shortstop.
2,700 games. He played till he was 45, I believe.
Yep.
He was with a slew of teams. I think 8 different teams in his career.
And that's something that hurts.
Yes.
If you get known, as you said, Mr. Red Sox, if you are known from a team, it gives you a fan base that loves you.
Yes.
These guys that skip around from place to place to place.
It hurts somebody like, say like Eddie Murray in the past. Eddie Murray,
I mean, a lot of pitchers play for 10, 12 teams, so they really don't get...
Sure. Well, Lee Smith, who just got inducted. If Lee Smith had put those numbers up with one team, he'd been in the Hall of Fame sooner.
Fans identify players best by their laundry.
Sure.
So if you stay with the same laundry and don't wash it, I guess.
Right, yeah.
Stay with the same one all along.
Right. And obviously, Vizquel's best years were with the Indians, and he was on the same team. Those teams that in the 90s that had Lofton and Vizquel and Alomar as the top 3 hitters, they were devastating, those guys at the top of the lineup. And as his career went on, he was less productive at the plate, but he was a compiler. He played so long that he had over 2,800 hits. He had a shot at 3,000 if he hung on another year or two. He had a 272 average and over 400 steals. And again, 11 Gold Gloves. And when you think shortstop, you think defense.
That's right.
And year out, even into his 40s, he was an extraordinary defender. And so he's sort of like you said, not really Mark Belanger, because he did have some good hitting numbers, but it was defense first with him. Yeah. And I really hope that he gets more consideration for Hall of Fame, because I think he should be in.
Well, like I said, we're taking games played at the position as a key factor, not WAR of angle, elevation,
exit velocity.
Exit velocity. It's more just that.
Yeah, but he had over 2,700 games at shortstop. That's
so you could make arguments for putting Trammell or Aparicio in, I think. But
I think, and honestly, I think Alan Trammell's a Hall of Famer too. I really do. He's very overlooked, and he was my number 6. I think he was yours too.
Yes. Yep.
Just misses the cut, but definitely look at his numbers sometime. He's an absolute Hall of Famer.
So that's it. That's our top 5.
So agree, disagree, let us know what you think.
Yep.
If you have anyone that you think we missed, let us know.
Derek Jeter, Cal Ripken, Ozzie Smith, Barry Larkin, and Omar Vizquel. Yeah. That's our Talking Baseball.
Our honor roll.
Our honor roll at shortstop. And they are put up on Mount Rushmore.
Yes, yep.
And Jeter has joined Mike Schmidt as the first 2 of our all-time
at the position.
And our next show we'll do second baseman. We're starting out with the infield because there are the fewest candidates.
Yeah, and it's kind of surprising when you go through and look at each position. The middle infielders, just like we've pointed out, there are really only probably like 7 at every position you could legitimately make an argument for. Right. Whereas when you hit the outfield, oh my Lord, the outfielders are going to be scary.
Since I had a lot of free time this winter, I went and filled out my top 5 at every position already. And when you get to right-handed pitchers, we are going to have a lot of discussion.
Mm-hmm. Yep, right-handed pitchers and outfielders.
Phenomenal. Oh, there's many Hall of Famers that won't make the list.
Oh, sure.
But that's a later show. That'll be in the fall sometime.
That's our teaser. We'll get to those later. So if you want to have some fun at home, our next show is second baseman. Do your own.
Yeah.
Come up with your own list and see if you agree with the 5 that we have. For second baseman. I'm sure we'll have probably 3 or 4 we'll definitely match on, and some debate for some of the lower spots.
Yeah, actually, in our last show, we talked about the fact that Jason is the administrator of the Red Sox Nation Facebook page, and he put our third baseman out on the page, and I was surprised to see most people agreed with you.
They did, yes. Yeah, like we talked about, Eddie Matthews was the one that got a little bit of support, who we left off, but everyone was pretty much in agreement with the list that we came up with.
So good for us.
Yes, we did well. We did well according to Red Sox Nation. So let us know. Have fun with it, and hopefully next month you can compare your list to ours.
Well, in the off season, the administration of baseball, especially the commissioner, is struggling with the concept that baseball games take too long.
If you watched the opening day ceremony when they had the rings, the commissioner was in the booth with the Nesson crew, and they asked him about some of these very issues and what was going to happen this year when some of them took effect.
See, apparently the millennial generation doesn't have the patience to sit through the pace of a ball game. They want something that's instant gratification, takes too damn long.
Yes.
And so do anything they can to shorten it. And they've come up with some brilliant ideas, like instead of pitching 4 balls for an intentional walk, you hold up 4 fingers, the guy
he
walks
just goes to first.
I figure that saved about 11 and a half seconds per pitch.
I think so, yeah.
So it shortens the game by about enough time to just walk down the aisle to get a beer.
Oh yeah, well we were at the game the other night and they intentionally walked J.D. Martinez and man, I would have been ahead of the traffic, if I was stuck going down Commonwealth. Those 11 seconds would have made all the difference, So thank you Red Sox, thank you Commissioner for that.
So this winter, Commissioner Manfred came up with 3 changes for the whole season and majestic changes in the All-Star game. They really procrastinate so much taking any drastic turns to shorten anything. As Stephen Wright would say, Manfred got his birthmark when he was 8. Yeah. Because it took him so long to decide to do anything. Yeah, right. So here's the first change.
So the first change, so listen to this. The breaks between innings on a local game, like on a NESN broadcast game, they used to be 2 minutes and 5 seconds. They're now 2 minutes flat.
Flat.
Because those 5 seconds make all the difference.
So you take 5 seconds times 18 changes. What does that work out to? A minute and a half shorter.
Oh,
right.
Yes.
Go Manfred.
Oh, my God, I can get to bed earlier now.
And national broadcasts have gone from 2:25 to 2 minutes. So what happens is they really drag the commercials over into the play. In fact, the other day there was a J.D. hit the first pitch.
Yeah.
His pitch was not shown.
And they missed it.
They missed it because they were still talking about underwear or something.
Right. Well, you know what that means is with the national the broadcast in the playoffs, that just means Fox doesn't get to promote its latest show. Because if you watch any of the playoffs that are on Fox, Fox is like a promotion for itself. The ads are taken up entirely by, this is our new show, come watch it. And most of them are nonsense. But anyway, they decide to promote the heck out of them.
Well, TV promotes itself all the time.
Of course it does.
Every single night in Jeopardy, one category is TV.
Is TV.
Which is a way of self-promoting.
Of course it is.
That's all it is.
Of course it is.
Right.
Sure. So those 5 seconds, you can get your life back, folks. The attention spans will turn back to baseball with those 5 seconds.
So that's the first.
And like you said, you know what? And we've talked about it all the time. What is baseball about? Money. It's a business. So you're cutting 5 seconds off of your business supporters, which, who knows? Does that make a difference? Yet to be seen. We'll find out from the commissioner later on.
And now the second critical move.
Oh, yeah.
The mound visits.
Oh.
Somehow, I still say because of Gary Sanchez.
Oh, absolutely.
Who used to make mound visits pretty much every pitch.
Every pitch. He learned it from Posada, who was the original king of that.
I think he learned it from Kevin Costner.
Yeah, right. Anything hit that far, I'd have a stewardess on it. So mound visits were cut from
6 to 5. I don't think there was ever one time last year where a team was penalized for more than 6.
I don't remember anyone ever using the full
on the scoreboard now, there is a place, mound visits.
Mound visits. It's a little corner up in the scoreboard. You can see it, mound visits. And, I mean, it led to some scintillating talk in the stands. Yeah. The strategic use of these mounds. Oh, it's going to come out.
We only got 2 left.
Oh, we have 2 left, and it's the 7th inning. My Lord, what are we going to do? It was just, it's a real talking point when you're out in the bleachers with the rough and tumble fans.
How many do we have left? Will Dana Levanchi be shut out in the 7th inning?
So you can tell we're being a little sarcastic with some of these changes, of course. So, and the next one, actually, this sort of makes a little bit of sense. The trade deadline was changed. It was always July 31st was the trading deadline for players for the postseason, and and the waivers have been eliminated for that too. So that kind of makes a little bit of sense when you think about it.
Right.
So that's the one we might be on board with, actually.
Now, they do have some coming up. Let's finish this first.
Oh, yes.
They do have some a little bit more critical ones for next year's schedule.
Yes. But, we have to get to the All-Star game first. Yeah.
All-Star games in pro sports are exhibitions to promote the sport.
Yes.
But they all have their problems. who wants to play pro football after your season's over?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
the teams that are in the Super Bowl don't get to go anyway.
Right.
Brady, I think, has he ever played?
I don't
He's
think
picked
so.
every year, but
He never goes.
I don't go.
Or if you watch the basketball All-Star game, they don't even play defense.
No.
They just let everybody score, and the final score is like 170 to 160, and LeBron gets his 50 points, and Harden gets his 50, and they just let everybody
And nobody
go.
watches. Hockey games are 17 to 15. Same
Right, you're
thing.
right, yeah, same thing.
The All-Star games in sports aren't of any real significance.
No.
And I don't think their TV audience is that great.
No, I mean, they're fun to watch if you're a fan of the game, and it used to be in the days before cable TV when you had the MLB package and everything. It was your only chance to see some of these players. Like the one that I always point to is I was a little too young to ever see Mike Schmidt play. The only time I ever got to see him play was the All-Star game. That was it. Because the Sox never played the Phillies. We never saw them on TV.
Right.
So it was a chance to see the other leagues' players. And even then, and so it was good in that sense. And it got you exposure to, other than the back of a baseball card, you actually get to see in person what this player would do. And once in a while, you'd look at a player and say, who is that guy? I don't even know who that is.
But baseball All-Star games, when they first started out, 1933 was the first one. It was intended to be charity during the Depression. It was started by a newspaper in Chicago as just a one-time deal. 15 players were picked. They all played 9 innings.
Yes.
And the pitchers would pitch up to 5 innings.
Sure.
Usually 3,
Sure.
but up to
Usually
5
3.
innings. And it was a genuine game against the best
Right.
And like in 1941 when Ted Williams hit the home run, big deal, big story. Well, what's happened recently is that more and more players are picked. I think there's 32 to 34 now. And the manager has to get everybody into the game.
Yeah, and every team has to be represented, too. So
And the fans can load the bat. And one year, I mean, Kansas City had, I think, 8 of the 9 starters.
Oh, yeah, yes. Yeah.
'Cause you vote electronically. You can vote up to 75 times.
Sure.
To sit there repeating.
And what that does is that, of course, skews the votes to the younger people who are electronically savvy and can do things like that. So
the Pass Commission decided, here's what we're going to do. Instead of having the World Series alternate between home teams, so it used to be one year the National League would have the 4-game advantage, then the American League. He said whoever wins the World Series will get
the All-Star game would get the advantage in the World
Series, right?
Which was catastrophically bad.
Well, because the American League always won.
Right. Well, but
and it was objected to, so it finally dropped that. But they're trying to think of something to make the All-Star game more attractive. So here's the changes that they've made. I'm not even
Well, that's what brought about the Home Run Derby.
That's right.
Is to get people more excited to watch the All-Star game.
So what's happened, though, is the Home Run Derby has not been entered by a lot of the good home run hitters because it screwed them up.
Well, of course it did, sure. Yeah. Or if you're not in the All-Star game, why would you go there anyway? You're going to make a trip just to play in the...
Big Poppy talked about it. It messed the swing up for 3 weeks after the game.
Oh, right.
So more and more, the top home run hitters wouldn't even enter the contest.
Sure.
So what they've done this year...
we have incentives.
Okay. So the fans vote like always to pick people. From a list, every team has to submit a player from each position, right?
Yes.
And then the fans pick the top 3. The day before the ballot is closed, they vote on just those top 3 to see who's going to start the game.
Right.
Well, actually,
one day.
starting the game isn't really that big a deal because usually the starters play 3 innings, and then they pick everybody else. So the crucial parts of the game are played by people who weren't starters.
By the backups. Sure.
So the whole voting deal is going to be changed. You get 1 day to vote.
1 day. That's it. So if you're sick with the flu that day, good luck.
Well, it doesn't matter. You stay home with your little machine.
Sure. So if you're working that day, your vote's not going to count.
Mookie.
So they've changed it to 1 day, and they've actually, in addition to changing the voting process, which again doesn't mean a heck of a lot when you have all these parameters of there has to be this amount of people on the roster and each team has to be represented. It just turns into basically roster management rather than the best players.
Exactly.
So like the Royals are terrible this year. Okay, they're going to take Whit Merrifield no matter what because he's their only good player. So that's a roster spot that's already taken up and now you have to work around that. Or who would you take from the Marlins this year? has to be somebody.
That's right.
So there have been pretty dubious picks. Remember the Red Sox had Scott Cooper 2 years in a row because they were horrible in the Butch Hobson years, and Mo Vaughn was their best player, but there were 5 other first basemen that were better than him at the time.
And Cooper was utility, so they could put him somewhere.
Sure, right, yeah. So it's led to some pretty comical all-star picks.
Here's another change that they've talked about actually implementing in all of baseball sometime.
Oh, God.
Extra innings. People don't like extra inning games. There was an 18-inning game yesterday with the Giants.
Yes, and it went to way late.
And, of course, the 18-inning game in the All-Star World Series game last year, which I thought was phenomenal.
Oh, it was phenomenal.
But it went 7 hours.
Yeah.
And that was 5.5 hours more than the millennials could take.
Right.
So what they're going to do now, at least in the All-Star game, is if the game goes extra innings, you start the 10th inning when the team comes up with a man on second base.
Sorry, no.
And then in this last half, the same thing. It's giving the team a better chance to score. So what it amounts to, you start a guy on second base, you bunt him to third, you hit a sacrifice fly.
Sure, and there's your run right
There's your
there.
run.
That's
right
your
there.
run, which is kind of silly when you think about
It's the same thing they've done in hockey where you have the shootouts
Oh, right,
instead
yes,
of finishing
right,
the game.
Right,
You know, just,
yeah, which is sort of silly.
or the football.
The college football where every team gets the ball and
So that's another change. So now in the All-Star game, they're going to try not to go extra innings because one year they went extra innings and ran out.
And ran out, yeah,
so it ended up in a tie.
Right.
And nobody likes ties anymore.
Yeah, and you know, let's overreact to the 1 year that it was an issue. Never mind the 70 All-Star games before that it wasn't a problem. But let's overreact to the one where it didn't work out, right? I mean, yeah, the word small sample size we use all the time, small sample size. One didn't work.
And now, talking about baseball as a business, here's a major change.
Right.
They're going to have the Home Run Derby again, and the winner of the Home Run Derby is going to get $1 million.
$1 million, yes.
Which is
$1 million.
twice Benintendi's yearly salary.
Right. So
he should enter.
Why not? Why
Triple
not?
his salary
Sure.
with one inning.
So now, as a way to get the best home run hitters back into the Derby, they're going to make incentives for it, which is kind of weird because baseball's always been very anti-incentive. It's been,
right.
The union and MLB has always been
no incentives in
the contract whatsoever. So it's sort of weird that they decided to do it just for the home run derby. But again, you said it's a business, so
it's sort of adding Powerball goes to baseball.
Right? Yeah, right.
You know?
Well, better players equals more eyeballs watching the TV equals more money.
Who's going to win the $1 million? Who's going to win?
Who wants the $1 million? And they'll have somebody come up with a big check and right around with that. And but those are the changes just for this year.
Well, I think what they're trying to do is to get all the guys who want to be in it.
Yes, of course.
So now, the guys that have been dodging it, who are the home run hitters, Martinez may take a shot at it.
Sure, right. Well, I mean, what's a home run hitting contest without Judge? I mean, that's silly to not have him in that. So they give some incentive to the best guys.
And he really needs the $1 million.
Oh, yeah, yeah, he does.
Absolutely.
Right. So, but moving on to next year, this is where the really radical changes come in.
Yeah.
And these aren't set in stone. They still have to be voted on by the players.
And
it has to get by the union, which is always a touchy issue, and I can't imagine the union going for some of these. But one of the things that they want to do next year is expand the roster. It's a 25-man roster now. They want to expand it to 26.
Right.
And to 27 if you play 2 games in one day.
Yeah.
So you get an extra player if you have a double header. Now, that's something the union will go for because that's an extra job.
Extra jobs,
That's an extra job. Right. And actually, I can sort of understand that. And especially in this age of relief pitching where everybody goes 1 or 2 innings rather than a starter and maybe 1 or 2 relievers. We saw Tampa Bay exploited that last year where they had an opener who would pitch an inning or 2 and then have other people take over. You need bigger bullpens. You need a bigger pitching staff. So it allows you a little bit more flexibility with both your bullpen but also your bench.
Yeah, you need to have reserves down on the farm.
Of course.
The Yankees got 10 guys now playing for them. They weren't
Exactly.
playing at the beginning. 10 guys already.
Yep.
It's just...
Yeah, and when you need, we used to, it won't be called this anymore, but it was the Pawtucket Shuttle. Those 3 or 4 guys who come up 3 or 4 times every year, play for a week or 2, and then go back down to Pawtucket. But you need guys like that to fill in.
Okay, what are we going to call it instead? The Worcester Whistle Stop?
That's a good one.
The Worcester
That's
Whistle
a good one.
Stop. That'll be called
But they'll have a tougher drive because it's the Pike and not 95. So it'll take them 3 hours to get to the park from Worcester.
And what they're going to also do, and this is a radical change, as of September 1st, up for years and years and years, you could add up to 40 men on the roster.
Sure.
So all the any hopeful would come up. But what that did was, the teams out of contention would play a lot of kids.
Play the scrubs.
And,
Right, yes.
and then so if a contending team was playing them, they would have an advantage over some other team that wasn't playing that team.
You have nothing to play
So
for.
watered down the lineup.
Right, so now they've changed that to you can have 28 people on the
28.
roster starting September 1st. And if you watch a lot of games, Jerry Remy has always talked about this. He said, I don't think it's fair that the critical games in September, you're playing a roster that's different from the rest of the season.
That's right.
And he has a point with that. I mean, well, if you're going to have anything, have the bigger rosters in April and whittle it down.
Right.
I mean, I would, you know, I
Because that's when there's more injuries.
Right,
Right.
that makes more sense to streamline the roster as the year goes on. And I think that started because back in the day, there were two teams that made the playoffs. That was it. You had your American League and your National League pennant winners, and that was it. So you knew by June that half of the teams were out of it. So to keep the fans interested in the game and just keep the team rolling in the doldrums of July and August when they were terrible, they would allow them to bring up the scrubs at the end of the year just to sort of maintain interest for the teams that are out of it. Well, that doesn't happen anymore with all these playoff spots. There are a lot more teams in contention, so it sort of outlived its usefulness, that whole idea of the September call-ups at the end of the year. So.
They've also changed the disabled list to the injured list.
Oh, injured list, yes.
Injured
It's
list.
the IL,
Next
not the
year,
DL.
it's going to go from 10 days to 15 days, which prevent teams from faking injuries.
And the Dodgers caught a lot of flack for that last year, for toying with that 10-day injured list.
I mean, I love the guy, but supposedly Brock Holt had his eyes scratched by his son on opening day. He played 2 weeks and wasn't doing well, so now all of a sudden what happens? He goes on the injured list so they can bring somebody else up. And then a pitcher gives up 7 runs in an inning,
and
Johnson,
he's injured.
and he's suddenly injured.
He's suddenly injured.
So that injured list is somewhat
dubious. Yeah, and the Dodgers, like I said, caught a lot of flack. They were toying with their pitching staff. They would have a starter go, put him on the injured list for 10 days. He'd miss 1 start and then come back healthy. Oh, healthy, in quotes. So I'm actually a little bit for that one. I think that prevents a lot of the toying with the roster that had happened the last couple of years with that 10-day injured list.
But here's the one that I really can't stand. I really
God.
hope they don't do this. Because teams now use specialist relief pitchers. A lefty's batter, they're bringing a lefty pitcher, and he'll pitch to one guy and take him out and bring in somebody else.
Yeah.
Too many pitching changes. But it's the strategy these days.
Of course.
It's different from the days when a starting pitcher went 9 innings.
Of course.
Give him 10 runs to hell with
Well,
it.
if you remember back in the 04 season, the Sox had the guy Mike Myers who would come in and just face one lefty. That was his job, face a lefty late in the game. And, well, as you said, that might be ending, depending on what's going on.
Who was the Sox pitcher that forever...
Tony Fossas.
Tony
Fossas made a career out of just facing one lefty.
One lefty.
So
here's the new proposed thing. A relief pitcher must face 3 batters when he comes in, or pitch to the end of the inning.
Right. So you can come in and face 1 batter if it's the end of the inning, but if it's not, you have to face 3 batters.
So they bring somebody in to face Judge because he's a lefty. He's got to stay in to face Stanton and Hicks, who aren't.
Right.
So
thumbs down on that one. I think
that.
that's silly. It takes away the whole strategy of using your bullpen wisely. I don't understand it.
If you're going to have relief pitchers, you should be able to use them any way you want.
Of course. Well, and if you remember, this happened last week. There was a pitcher who actually came out and they put him in the outfield for 1 batter and then brought him back in. So does that count as facing a batter? You're on the field. What do you do in a case like that?
Back in the 50s, they did that a lot.
Of course they did.
Because they wanted the pitchers to stay in longer.
Sure.
So they would put I can remember Maury McDermott was a lefty pitch for the Sox. Good hitter.
Yeah.
And they would just stick him in left field for 1 batter.
Sure.
And then bring him back in.
Yep.
Just bring in a relief pitcher.
Sure. Yeah.
So maybe that strategy would have to come back.
Maybe it would have to, but I just don't like the idea. It takes away the whole idea of using your best bullpen guys for the best opposing hitters.
But to get back to our original thesis, it's tinkering with a game that's a hell of a game.
Yeah, it is.
Just tinkering with it because they're trying to make concessions to those folks that just can't sit still for that long a time.
Right. Yep.
I'd rather watch paint dry or grass grow than watch baseball. You know?
And from our perspective, hey, I want more baseball. I'm sorry. Have the game go all damn day. I'm fine with that.
I'm of the doubleheader generation, boy.
Absolutely.
Keep playing.
Absolutely. Keep them playing. So.
Well, this all rolls around then to our trivia answer.
Yes, it does. Yes. So.
Interestingly, the procedure that he used, that Corey used all season long of resting people, he stuck to it.
He did.
At times he got some criticism for it, especially when someone was playing well. He sat him down anyway. He play him against a lefty if he was a righty,
Sure.
and not do that. But he kept it all the way through, and so the only player that played as many as 150 games was J.D. Martinez.
J.D. Martinez. It was 150
games. So for all the exploits he had, he still missed a dozen games this season.
Sure. Yeah. And well, and who's to question Cora, because it worked out pretty good at the end of the year, didn't it? Worked out very well. So that brings us to the end of episode 2 from the humble studios of Channel 9. This is my first show in the studio, so
right.
who knows? It's maybe a trend.
There's some things we might talk about next episode too. Big talk these days about contract extensions.
Oh, yes.
Contract extensions, because free agency isn't working out.
No, and
I wonder if by the time this show airs, Keuchel and Kimbrel will be signed. It's amazing that these two multi-million-dollar...
Kimbrel's the best relief pitcher, an age 30 relief pitcher ever, and he's not with the team right now. Which again, and I think part of that ties into the uncertainty that the collective bargaining agreement negotiations are happening within a year, I believe it is.
Right.
I think it's next year.
Right.
So teams aren't willing to. They're tinkering with the free agency system a little bit because they don't want to make a commitment that they would regret later with the collective bargaining agreement. So, but something to ponder next time is that there are a slew of Red Sox who
and you think they've already given extension to Mike Trout, who would have been the ultimate
free agent.
Signed him. He's there for a year. So far the Sox have signed Sale and Bogarts. And next year there's 6 more players that are free agents: Porcello, Moreland, Nunez, Pierce, Holt, and Thornburg. I think of that group, they're probably most likely tried to sign, I would say, who? Porcello?
Probably Porcello, I would think. Porcello and Moreland, I would think. Yeah. But we'll get into that next show about how the contract extensions and the free agency is completely changed, for better or worse, depending on your opinion of the game.
So we're going to take our bling and go home.
Yes.
Hope everyone enjoyed episode
Extreme
2
close-up of
5.
The bling. So
and,
Wonder Twin Powers activate right here.
And you out in Syndicate TV you're watching, I hope you'll give us consideration for our national broadcast.
You'll be holding an award next time.
And so until that time, we'll see you all in August.
Take care.
Thank you for watching another outstanding program provided to you by Lunenburg Public Access. We're here to serve the community. Lunenburg Public Access is always looking for volunteers to help record town events, high school sports, and town meetings. Please consider helping us out today. To contact us, you can call 617-763-3018 or email us at lunenburgaccess@gmail.com.